Okay, hello everyone. Welcome to our new HTML lesson number 4. So for this particular video, we're going to learn what is favicon, and then we will also learn how to insert background image into your pages or websites, and at the same time learn how to insert tables. And that is first, that means we learn how to create columns and rows, at the same time learn how to merge columns and rows. Alright, so let's start with favicon. So favicon is actually something that you have probably seen in some of the sites that you have visited. It's a small image that's displayed next to the page title in your browser tab. So I will show you examples of this later on. Now, so simply, if you want to insert favicon into your website, you have to either save your favicon image to the root directory of your server, or create a folder in the root directory called images. And please take note that the common name for a favicon image is favicon.ico or icon. So you have to rename your file to any other file name to favicon in order for the browser to recognize that it is a favicon. So there are a few sites that I have included here in this page, on these slides, that will allow you to create a favicon automatically. So please take note that since it's going to be a small image, as what you can see in the next few slides, it should be a simple image with a high contrast. So have a look at this from Amazon. There's a favicon on the upper part of your page, particularly on the tab name or the title of your website, of the website of Amazon. This also can be found on Wikipedia. For instance, you have the logo for Wikipedia, which is W, and of course you also have here on Yahoo. And these are just some of the examples that I could give you as far as websites that are using favicon is concerned. So favicon is not really a requirement for a website. It's an optional feature just to add more entitlement or branding onto your website. So basically, to add a favicon into your website, as mentioned already, on how or where you create the root, the folder that is named favicon.icon. So either you save it in the root directory, or you create a folder called images, and that's where you store your favicon.icon file. Alright, so you have to add the link element inside your head /head tags. And say for instance you have index.html, which is the main document or main file of your website. You have to add it inside the head /head tags under the title tag like this. So you have link, and then rel is equal to icon, so that it will be identified as an icon. And then you have the type of image, which is an X icon, and then the reference or the location of your favicon.icon file. So please again take note that you have to rename your file to favicon.icu for it to be recognized as a favicon. So again, it's stored inside your head /head under the link element. Okay, so this is how if you're going to open favicon.io, this is how it will look like. So it claims to be the only favicon generator that you would need. So here you could either convert PNG files into an icon or a favicon, or text, or an emoticon or emojis. So you might want to explore on this one, because each site has its own instruction on how to create and generate your icon or favicon.ico and insert it into your web page. Okay, so I hope that you were able to follow that creation of favicon. Let's move on to the next topic, which is on inserting background into your images. So in the previous video that we have created or explained with you, we have learned how to change the background color, change the background of your text, and so here we're going to learn how to change the background image. So by default your background is just plain, but if for instance you want to use a an image or a GIF file or a PNG file or a JPEG file as a background of your site, all you have to do is to put background is equal to and then the file name of your file enclosed in double quotes. So please remember that just like our previous discussion, if you store your pick one, just like in the example here, under the folder index, you have to put a slash, or if you store it inside the, you have to put a slash and images file, or images slash pick1.gif. Now, if you're going to store it in the main or root directory, you have to put slash and then see the name of the folder and then pick1.gif. All right, so I'm sure you know how to alter the path here so that your browser will be able to find the particular JPEG or GIF or PNG file or the image that you want to put as your background. Alright, so this is just one way. Body background is equal to, and then the name of your file name. It's just one way to create a background image into your web page. There is also a CSS version of how to do it. Just like in the previous slides, there were some instances wherein it's already wherein I said it's already an introduction to your CSS discussion or lessons. So I will discuss further about how to add a background image using style when we discuss about CSS in another video. But for now, I want you to try the example that I gave you earlier. You can change or alter your current HTML files instead of just saying body. Okay, change or add the attribute background is equal to and then the name of the file that you want to use as a background into your HTML file so that you can change the background image. So with this, I'd like you to pause your video and then try it out. Now, the next topic that we're going to discuss for this video is about creating HTML tables. So tables are defined with a table/table tags. So here you have row will be tr. Of course, this is just the beginning tags. You have to have your end tags /table/tr/td/th. Now, the important things that you need to remember here is that aside from table, you have tr that will stand as your table row. You have TD, which is for your table data or column, and then you have your TH for your headers. So I will give you an example of how this one works in the next slides. So here, we're going to start with a one column, one row example of a table. Please take note again that we will learn how to add spacing or padding into your tables in the future discussions on CSS. Again, we will also learn how to change the border of your table. So for now, we'll just use border is equal to 1. We will learn other types of borders later on when we learn CSS. We will also learn how to change the size of each of your columns or rows when we go to that topic. And then we will also learn how to change the style. I think I mentioned that already. The style, the size, the padding, and other colors when we reach the discussion on CSS. But for now, let's just say table border is equal to 1. So that's going to be about this kind of table as you can see in the sample output. And then note that it ends with a /table tag. Now inside your table/table tags will be the row and the column that you're going to specify. So in the first example here, you have one tr, so that means to say it will only be one row, and then one pair of td, that means it will only be one column. So that explains why for this first example you only have one cell that will comprise the table. There even is no heading for this particular example. So this is just one cell or one column, one row type of table. Now for the second example here, please take note, or if you have noticed, you actually have 3 columns, and that is because you also have 3 TDs here. So again, going back, you have your table, border is equal to 1, so that it will look, your table will look like this with a kind of border, and so that your browser will know that this is going to be a table. And then you have your TR, which indicates the row, the table row, and then inside that particular row, you have 3 columns as signified by your TD/TD tags. So it will display 100, 200, and 300 specifically. And then you have /TR, so that it ends your first row. And there are no other TR/TR following this. So that means it will only be 1 row, 3 columns. And that's actually pretty straightforward, very easy to understand. Okay, so at this point, I'm going to give you time to try that out. Please pause the video or go back a few seconds before this particular slide that you're seeing right now and try to understand again the code that I gave you. Try to experiment and apply it into your HTML file and insert your own number of columns for 1 row, and we will come back later to explain how to add rows into that particular table. Okay, so we're back. I hope that you tried and paused the video to experiment on your specific number of columns and 1 row for your first table in HTML. The next slide here, we're going to discuss how to add additional rows into your table. So for the first example, if you have noticed, there is only 1 column and 3 rows, and that is because if you have noticed here, inside table border is equal to 1, you have 3 TRs. So that means to say you have 3 rows, and for each of these row you have 1 TD/TD pair, and that means to say each row will only have one column, okay, or 1 cell, and you have another TR/TR on the next code, and that will display 200, and then another TR/TR pair to display 300. So as you can see here, every TR has its own TD. So TR stands for row, TD stands for column, and that explains why you only have 1 column, 3 rows. All right. So the next example here is, if you have noticed, you have one TR/TR for every line, but each of this has 2 TD pairs, and that means to say every row will have 2 TDs or 2 columns. Now please note that the way you write it or the way you code it doesn't necessarily have to appear like this. Your TR may be on another line from your TD. Each of the TD/TD pairs may be in different rows, so it might look different eventually. But then, please remember that the basis for showing the table is not on how it is outlined or how it is laid out in your HTML file, but rather how each of these codes are actually structured. So that's why you're able to come up with this one. So during the exam, I will test you whether you code it like this or you code it differently, or it may look different because each of the TRTDs will be in different rows, but please try to analyze how it's going to appear when you open it in your browser. So as you can see here, going back, so you have here 3 TRs, 3 pairs of TR/TRs, and each of these TR/TR has 2 pairs of TD/TD codes. So that explains each row will have 2 columns, and that will display first, that will first display student 1, and then 100, student 2, 200, student 3, 300, and that explains why you have 3 rows, 2 columns. So my challenge for you is to create, say for example, 4 columns and then 5 rows, and try to see if you're able to come up with the correct code and display that. Good luck! Okay, so before we stopped earlier, I asked you to create a table that has 4 columns and 5 rows. So here is the correct output. So in order for you, I don't care what you put inside your table or what you put inside your cells or columns. But you just have to create, say in this case here, we just need to create 5 pairs of TRs, and inside your TR/TR codes, you have to create 5 TDs, and that will signify or indicate the number of columns for each row. Okay, now for the next slide, I'm going to teach you how to merge columns. And so to merge columns, or to make a cell span over multiple columns or merge them, you have to use the code callSpan. So assign callSpan to a value equivalent to the number of columns that you want to merge. So in this case here, as you can see, in row number 2, we actually have three TDs. So that means, say, we have 3 columns. However, on the first TR/TR code, you have TD, and then callSpan is equal to 3. So callSpan here means that you're going to merge all the cells, all the columns that you are trying to display on the second row. So that explains why in the output here you have numbers, and that is that has merged 3 columns, as opposed to your row number 2. It has spanned over 3 columns in your output. So just use callSpan equal to the number of columns that you want to merge, and that will look like this. Okay. Next to that, of course, the opposite of callSpan for spanning over multiple rows is called rowSpan. So that's going to be merging rows in your column. So as you can see here, you have 2 TR/TR. Now the first one, in your first TR/TR code, you have TD rowSpan is equal to 2. That is because what you want to happen here is you want to merge the first column together up to the second row. So if you say here, say for example, if you have 5 TR codes, for instance, so meaning 5 rows, and you say rowSpan is equal to 4, that means you say that your merging will only reach up to the 4th row, and it will not include the last one. Okay, so I hope that made it clear. So as you can see here, you have TD rowSpan is equal to 2, so that means that you don't want to put anything on the first column of your second row anymore, because you have already merged them. And so this TD/TD here in the second row will now be for the second column and not for the first column. So that explains why you have 2 TDs on the first row but only 1 TD on the second row. Okay, so at this point, I want you to try out callSpan and rowSpan, because definitely you will have an activity that will allow me to challenge you on how to merge your columns and your rows after this discussion. Okay, so I hope you have tried merging columns and rows. And so this has been a very short video. For the summary of this video, we have discussed what favicon is, and I have shared with you 2 possible websites where you could automatically create a favicon. We also learned how to insert or change your background image, and that is not using the CSS yet. And we also learned how to insert tables, again without touching the CSS part of creating tables. So we have not discussed yet how to change the style of your table, how to change the color, how to add padding, how to change the width, but that will be discussed in the future. For now, we're just creating a simple table, and thereby, of course, creating columns, rows, and learning how to merge them. So with that, I'd like to say thank you, and prepare and good luck for your next activities in the future. Bye. Thank you.